because of the actions that our regulators have already taken, every American should feel confident that their deposits will be there if and when they need them.
So that was President Biden right at 9 a.m. Eastern time, trying to reassure the markets that they've taken care of the two banks, and hopefully there won't be any more, SVB and Signature Bank of New York, both regional banks. One's the 16th largest bank. One ranks a little bit further on the list. The Signature Bank evidently is driven by, I don't know, the digital media. We could talk about we could talk about Bitcoin and everything else. That's really where they invested most of their money. And the other one was invested mostly in startups in Silicon Valley, in those tech firms. With me right now to discuss this and other markets assuaged right now is Mollie Hemingway. She is editor-in-chief of the Federalist, senior journalism fellow at Hillsdale, and a Fox News contributor and author of Rigged. Mollie, welcome back.
Great to be here with you.
So how did the president what do you think of the president's approach?
Well, it was clear that something needed to be addressed, and given the importance, it's good that he actually did address the situation. The problem is that this isn't just happening. We didn't just have these two bank failures right now. We also just 15 years ago had the massive bailout of banks and
2008.
And that was something that did not meet with political approval in the aftermath of that. This idea that we socialize everybody's losses, but we keep gains privatized, is something that does not meet with much approval from the American people. So that explains why President Biden's trying to say that this is like a magic bailout that won't involve any taxpayer support. But I think it remains to be seen how this is going to work out.
Right. We don't really know. So we'll see how the market's responding today. But they had said they have a $100 billion fund that was put together after the 2008, a pool of money that's regularly paid into by U.S. banks. And that's what they're coming out of to stop these two banks. And I think a third might be Republic Bank, a third regional bank. And then they're kind of waiting, it seems, for a bigger bank to make an offer to buy one of these.
Which should actually be able to happen. And that'll be important for assuring all these depositors. But I think what was happening politically was just this attempt to not have it spread. There was a legitimate fear of contagion, that more bank runs would be occurring as people got nervous about how leveraged these financial institutions
So Congressman Ro Khanna, who represents that area, was on yesterday, and this is before this degree of bailout was announced. Cut 5.
Here's what I'm hearing from people in my constituency. They are getting notes to pull out of regional banks, and all of this will be consolidated in the top 4 banks. We don't want that as a nation, especially if you're progressive. The other thing is the payroll companies that are involved. Some of them have 400,000 folks. They're not going to be able to meet payroll if they don't have access to the deposits.
Yeah. So, and these are mostly startups. They say it's got 60,000 separate businesses are involved in this relatively smaller bank. It's not Goldman Sachs. So we'll see where this goes, and we'll see the fallout, because it definitely overwhelmed his job numbers on Friday.
So Ro Khanna just was on the train I was just on, sitting right across from me, talking to reporters on the way up. So I was listening to his case for why these bailouts should happen. It's just important to remember this is his district that this is happening in, right? So he really wants federal help in order to help his constituents. But one of the things he was saying is that we need to bail out this bank because they help so many homeless people. And I was like, I don't think that's a very good argument. They really are just, it's a Silicon Valley bank. Like they're really funding a lot of these startups.
They got plenty of homeless to choose from.
But the other thing is, this bank actually is one of those banks that has spent tens of millions of dollars on social justice programs. You know, their head of risk, the person who's like in charge of handling risk assessment, is a DEI hire. You know, they were praising how she's like queer female as opposed to what her credentials are for managing risk. Which
Jay Esparza, or financial manager. Do you know that they had no risk manager for 9 months?
I think it shows.
Yeah. And also the CEO dumped $3.5 million worth of stock the day before the collapse. This guy's name is Greg Becker. President Biden said, I fired all of management.
Well, people should pay for this. This is bad management of assets. But you saw that the people many people at the bank got bonuses literally hours before the collapse of the bank.
It's unbelievable. So I want to talk about 2024 if we could. So right now, Governor DeSantis spent the weekend in Iowa. Was over there. He's going to go to New Hampshire in a couple of weeks. President Trump's there today. Tim Scott's going to announce this week. I think he's getting in. We know Nikki Haley is in. Vivek Ramaswamy, by the way, these are perfect topics for him, by the way. This is right up his alley, is already in. So Mike Pence, I think it's just a matter of formality. How do you see this playing out right now? How do you rank him, Mollie Hemingway?
Well, I think most of the polls are showing that something like between 70 or 80% or more of Republican primary voters are between Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis. It's sort of like those two are approaching the campaign one way, and then everybody else is fighting over the remaining.
Well, they're being who they are, right?
But also they're sort of this new Republican Party. They're bold in taking on the media. Just by way of contrast, Mike Pence spoke at the Gridiron Dinner this weekend, which is this big D.C. media thing, and he praised the press and talked about how important they were to securing democracy. And he attacked Trump, which is fine, that's an opponent, and attacked, and it was just a really weird approach to take if you're trying to win the Republican nomination for president. But you see a difference between how Ron DeSantis is, who is calling out the media for their false assumptions, their lies, and being very bold about it and being very knowledgeable about how to fight them, versus that sort of old Republican style of trying to play nice with the media in the hopes that they'll support you.
So Brendan Buck, who's chief of staff for Paul Ryan, was on as an analyst on This Week with George Stephanopoulos, who didn't have George Stephanopoulos. Here's what he said about when people are critical. He says when Trump goes at DeSantis, there's a different type reaction. I'm sure you've picked it up. Cut 20.
He is the one person when Donald Trump swings at him that people are like, whoa, 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 whoa.
It's
like,
different.
If he hits Mitch McConnell or if he hits Nikki Haley, it's, that's pretty funny. But if you hit Ron DeSantis, it's like, well, we don't hit other Republicans. It's like, since when? But that speaks to something that people, like Jonathan said, people are rooting for him. Whether that is ultimately a good thing or a bad thing for him is an issue.
Molly, put your analyst hat. He's right, though. I mean, people are uncomfortable. And I think when DeSantis goes back at Trump, people are going to be just as uncomfortable.
They're uncomfortable because they, like I just said, 70 to 80% of Republicans like them. Trump obviously has the biggest chunk of that, but people really like DeSantis. They like how he's governing his state. So attacks on him don't hit the same way as they do on sort of more establishment Republicans, because people view DeSantis as also fighting for them and what they care about. Now, I'm not saying it's crazy that Trump's doing it. He's trying to win a nomination, so of course he's going to attack the next in line, who is Ron DeSantis. So people should get ready for it. And once DeSantis officially enters the race, if he does that, it's going to get, it's a tricky thing, because how do you win the nomination without alienating that really strong Trump support that's out there? It's going to be a challenge.
Do you remember anything like this before? Was it Bush, Reagan? I can't get into the details of that. Was it Dole, Bush? They were very different. You had Obama and Hillary really getting personal. They got for a while, but I don't remember people upset that Barack Obama was going after Hillary, or people were upset with Hillary for going after Obama.
I don't know. I kind of feel
like this.
Anytime there are two people who are going for the same lane, and this is a big lane, it's basically the Republican Party.
Right.
There are people who if two people are going after the social conservative vote or the, interventionist military vote, they might get a little snippy with each other. But this is a really big lane. And it is a little weird to watch. It's uncomfortable, but it's going to happen. And so whoever is going to win that nomination between Trump or DeSantis.
You think it's going to be, right now, that's the way it looks, but is that the way you think it's going to be, Molly?
I do think that the Republican voters are done with any other option. They just view it as something of the past.
Even though it hasn't started yet.
Well, just
because Sununu has got to make his case. Does Pence have to make his case? It's very similar to Trump's, right?
I mean, technically, Pence is one of the top contenders in that he has 7% of the vote or something. He's not. I don't think it's likely he's going to win the nomination, particularly with the approach he's taking. I think it will be. I think there's the Republican Party is rejecting some of the failures of its past, and they want this bold, people-focused, working-class kind of approach.
Here is what I think. One thing people should understand, that if it is DeSantis, he's going to get attacked with the same vigor as Trump. And I think people think that because he's younger and a little bit more professional in his approach, more traditional in his approach, that he's not going to be like that. Chuck Todd gave you an indication yesterday. Cut 25.
Jonathan, it's sort of like, look, being a Floridian, I sort of know what he's trying to play there and all of that. But I would tell him, I went to Florida public schools. We were taught this. It was called history. Right. It just seems like a weird politicizing. He's going out of his way to politicize something.
Going out of his way to politicize education? No, he stopped the AP course because of what was in it. Then he exposed what was in it. He didn't ban books. He went in there and said ban inappropriate books for ages. And then he showed everybody some of the verbiage in these books, and they shut it down.
Yeah, Chuck Todd is claiming that when he went to school in Florida, he was taught some of the hatred of critical race theory. That may or may not be true, but it's also true that politically speaking, removing some of the more insane extremist ideology from this curriculum is politically popular, and it's something
For both sides.
For both sides. But you are absolutely right when you say that it's not like if you don't have Trump that it's going to go. They could nominate the squishiest of squishy Republicans, someone like a Mitt Romney or a John McCain, and you don't need to have that much knowledge of history to know that the media hated those people. And they loved John McCain until he won the nomination. They helped him get the nomination. But the moment he showed even a slight threat to Barack Obama, the man they really like, they started going after him in really unfair and awful ways. Do you remember the New York Times had that front page story with like no legitimate sourcing, accusing him of cheating on his wife? And, they went hard after John McCain, and no Republican has ever had as much love from the media as John McCain.
Right. And just remember when Harry Reid said, everyone knows Mitt Romney doesn't pay taxes, later would say, I made that up. Really? Okay.
And more importantly, he said he didn't apologize for it because he said, it worked, right? I got it out there.
Yeah, that's guy who was in the last lap of his life. Phil Murphy was out on Sunday, and New York Times did a story the day before about how, is he running for president? All of a sudden he's visiting key states, and he's talking about international relations. Do you think that the delay of Joe Biden is giving some people a sense that they might have a shot at the nomination, the delay of the announcement?
Yeah, it's not just a delay, because even if he had announced, the bigger issue is that the vast majority of Democrats don't want Biden to run. Now, I'm not sure how much that matters. I don't think people were particularly excited about him running in 2020 either, but he got the nomination and he got over the finish line. There's something about the Democrat ballot operation that it almost doesn't matter who they nominate. They're going to get the votes for whoever they've got a really good, effective operation for getting ballots into the ballot box. And so I think if Biden got the nomination, he would have a very strong shot. But it is true that Democrats don't actually seem to want him.
Mollie Hemingway is here. Mollie, as you know, is editor-in-chief of the Federalist, Fox News contributor. Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.